You're sitting across from your boss in her corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows, leather chairs that cost more than your car. She's smiling. You know that smile. It's the same smile a cat gives a mouse before the paw comes down. "We value your contributions," she says. "You're part of the family here." Family, that's heard again. And then comes the pivot, which is why this next project is such a great opportunity for you. It's high visibility, executive attention, career-making stuff. She leans forward. It'll require some weekend work, late nights. But for someone with your potential, worth it. You hear yourself saying yes? Of course you do. Because she never actually asked if you wanted to do it. She never gave you a choice. She just made you feel like saying no would mean you're not a team player, not ambitious, not worthy of being part of the family. She gave you the illusion of choice while removing all actual options. You walk out feeling motivated, maybe even grateful. That's when you realize you just got played. Welcome to Machiavelli's world, a place where power isn't taken by force, it's given willingly by people who think they're making their own decisions, where control doesn't look like chains and cages, it looks like corner offices and opportunities, where manipulation is so smooth, so elegant, that the manipulated actually thank you for it. And here's the uncomfortable part. This game is being played on you right now. In your job, your relationships, your social circles, even in your own mind. The only question is whether you'll learn the rules or keep getting played by those who already know them. What Machiavelli actually saw that everyone else missed. Let me tell you about Niccolo Machiavelli, not the cartoon villain everyone thinks they know, but the man who got exiled, tortured, and had his entire life destroyed for telling one simple truth. People are predictable as hell when you understand what actually drives them. While his contemporaries were writing flowery bullshit about how humans are noble creatures guided by reason and virtue, Machiavelli was watching Florence burn. He saw noble leaders betray allies the moment it became convenient. He watched virtuous citizens support whoever promised them safety. He observed rational people make the same stupid decisions repeatedly because fear and self-interest overrode everything else. And he wrote it all down, not because he was evil, but because he was paying attention. His insight? Brutally simple. Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful man will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived. Translation. Most people are running on autopilot, driven by immediate concerns and base instincts, which makes them embarrassingly easy to manipulate if you understand the buttons to push. Harsh, maybe. True, look around. How many people do you know who claim to value long-term financial security but can't stop impulse buying shit they don't need? Who say they want meaningful relationships but swipe through dating apps looking for instant validation? Who talk about principles but abandon them the second they become inconvenient? Machiavelli didn't judge this. He just observed it, like a scientist watching lab rats hit the same lever for food pellets. The rats aren't evil, they're just rats. And humans? We're just sophisticated rats with better excuses. This is the foundation of Machiavellian thinking. People respond primarily to self-interest and immediate concerns, not abstract principles or distant consequences. Once you accept this, human behavior becomes remarkably predictable, and predictable behavior, that's controllable behavior. But here's where it gets interesting. Machiavelli noticed something else, something darker. People don't actually care about reality, they care about perception. The gap between what you are and what people think you are. I knew this guy, Alex. Mid-level manager at a tech company, not particularly smart, definitely not the hardest worker, but the man was a master of one thing, appearance. He'd leave his car in the parking lot late and Uber home, so everyone thought he was pulling long hours. He'd send emails at 2 a.m., scheduled in advance, obviously, but nobody checked that. He'd mentioned the call I had with, executive name, in meetings, making everyone think he had high-level access. Most of those calls, 3-minute elevator conversations. Meanwhile, Sarah actually was brilliant, actually did pull long hours, actually solved critical problems, but she worked quietly, didn't self-promote, assumed her results would speak for themselves. Guess who got promoted? Alex, every single time. Because Machiavelli nailed it 500 years ago. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Think about that, really think about it. How many leaders have you actually worked closely with? How many celebrities do you really know beyond their Instagram feed? How many experts have you personally verified aren't complete frauds? Almost none, right? Everything you know about most people is curated performance, carefully constructed appearances designed to create specific impressions. You're not evaluating reality, you're consuming theater, and the best actors win regardless of whether there's any substance behind the performance. But this is what Machiavelli called the perception-reality gap, and it's where all the real power plays happen. The leader who solves complex problems but appears uncertain, dead in the water. The one who solves nothing but projects absolute confidence, rising star. The politician telling uncomfortable truths, weak. The one serving comforting lies, electable. The executive acknowledging nuance, indecisive. The one spouting simplistic bullshit with total conviction, decisive leader. Why does this work? Because humans are lazy thinkers. We evolved to make quick judgments based on surface level information because stopping to verify everything would get us eaten by predators. We're hardwired to trust confidence as a proxy for competence, even when that confidence is completely unjustified. Your brain takes shortcuts. Confident person equals competent person. Uncertain person equals incompetent person. It's not true, but your instincts don't care about truth. They care about speed. And once you understand this, you can weaponize it. The dating profile that signals success without claiming it, the resume that emphasizes achievements while burying failures, the LinkedIn headline that sounds impressive without making verifiable claims, the social media presence that curates highlights while hiding struggles. We're all playing this game. The only difference is some people know they're playing and everyone else is just hoping honesty somehow wins. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Fear versus love, the control mechanism nobody wants to admit. Here's where Machiavelli gets really uncomfortable. He asks a question that still makes people squirm. Is it better to be loved or feared? His answer, if you can't have both, it's far safer to be feared than loved. Now, before you write him off as a sociopath, let's talk about Marcus, promoted to team leader at 26. Super nice guy. Everybody loved him, brought donuts on Fridays, remembered birthdays, never raised his voice. His team, absolute chaos. Deadlines missed, work half-assed, projects falling apart. Why? Because nobody feared the consequences of letting Marcus down. They loved him, sure, but love without consequences is just permission to disappoint you. Then Marcus got transferred and Jennifer took over. Professional, fair, clear expectations, and a reputation for not tolerating bullshit. People didn't love Jennifer, but they respected her, and more importantly, they delivered for her. Because failing to meet Jennifer's standards had consequences everyone understood. That's Machiavelli's point, not that you should be a tyrant, but that love is unreliable. Here's why. Men are generally ungrateful, fickle, dissemblers, anxious to avoid danger, and covetous of gain. When self-interest conflicts with affection, self-interest wins. Every time. The employee who loves working for you will jump to a competitor for a 15% raise. The friend who swears eternal loyalty will ghost you when supporting you becomes socially costly. The partner who claims undying devotion will leave when someone more attractive shows interest. Love is conditional. It depends on feelings which change. Fear, specifically fear of consequences, is reliable. It's based on self-interest, which remains constant. Now here's the crucial distinction Machiavelli made that everyone ignores. There's a difference between fear and hatred. Fear without hatred equals respect plus caution. Fear with hatred equals active desire for your downfall. The boss who fires people arbitrarily creates hatred. The one who enforces clear standards creates productive fear. The parent who punishes randomly creates hatred. The one who enforces consistent boundaries creates healthy fear. The leader who threatens violence creates hatred. The one who threatens consequences creates compliance. You want people to fear disappointing you or facing predictable consequences. You don't want them plotting your destruction. That's the line. And this extends way beyond formal authority. In negotiations, the person who can credibly walk away has power over the one who's desperate for agreement. In relationships, the partner who needs it less often controls the terms. In social groups, whoever can grant or withhold approval influences those seeking it. The application is clear. Make others more dependent on you than you are on them. Create circumstances where aligning with your interests becomes their path of least resistance. Establish yourself as someone who impacts their outcomes positively or negatively. That's not evil, that's leverage. The silent strategy when not speaking is your superpower. Now, we covered the 4 tactical phases in the last video. You know the mechanics. But here's what Machiavelli understood that goes deeper than any single technique. Sometimes your greatest weapon is strategic absence. Let me tell you about James. James worked at a hedge fund, smart guy, but not the smartest in the room. What made James dangerous was something else entirely. He mastered the art of letting others fill the silence with their own destruction. He was at work. Partnership meeting, big debate about whether to invest in a biotech company. 2 senior partners going at it. Anderson thinks it's the next unicorn. Rodriguez thinks it's vaporware. Both presenting data, both making cases, both getting heated. James, silent, taking notes, nodding occasionally, asking one clarifying question every 15 minutes. The argument escalates. Anderson accuses Rodriguez of being too conservative. Rodriguez accuses Anderson of being reckless. Both are now emotionally invested in being right rather than finding truth. The room is splitting into camps. James stays quiet. Finally, the managing partner turns to him. James, you've been quiet. What do you think? And James delivers, I think both perspectives have merit. Anderson's growth projections are compelling if the phase 3 trials go well. Rodriguez's concerns about burn rate are valid given the sector's history. What I'm most interested in is the timeline Anderson mentioned. If they're not hitting milestones by Q2, we'd want an exit strategy. Rodriguez, do your conservative estimates account for potential partnership announcements? Notice what he did? He didn't take a side. He synthesized both positions, showed he'd actually listened, elevated the conversation, and reframed it around risk management everyone could agree on. 3 months later, the company announced a major partnership. The investment paid off. Anderson looked brilliant. Rodriguez looked prudent for raising concerns that led to the exit strategy discussion. And James got promoted because while others were trying to win the argument, he was winning the room. That's Machiavellian silence. Not saying nothing, but saying nothing until you've gathered enough information to say the exact right thing at the exact right moment. Most people can't handle silence. They fill it, they reveal their positions too early, their weaknesses, their desperation, their limits. Silence creates psychological pressure that makes people volunteer information they should keep hidden. Watch it in negotiations. The person who speaks first after an offer usually loses. The person who can sit comfortably with uncomfortable silence forces the other side to negotiate against themselves. Actually, we might be able to go to 90K, says the hiring manager, to fill the void after you've sat quietly processing their 85K offer. Watch it in conflicts. The person who stays calm while others get emotional appears more credible by default. You don't need to defend yourself against every accusation. Often, letting the accuser rant themselves into looking unreasonable is more effective than any rebuttal. Watch it in social dynamics. The person who doesn't immediately jump to fill conversational gaps appears more secure, more valuable, more worth listening to when they do speak. Desperation talks too much. Power waits. A delegate and distance play, making others do your dirty work. Here's another Machiavellian principle that most people completely miss. Never personally execute the unpopular parts of your agenda. Let me introduce you to Catherine, VP at a consumer goods company. The company needed to cut costs significantly, meant layoffs, benefit reductions, the works, ugly stuff, career-ending stuff if handled wrong. Catherine's play, textbook Machiavelli. She formed a strategic efficiency task force led by Brian from operations and Melissa from finance, gave them clear mandate. Find 15% cost reductions across the organization. You have full authority to recommend whatever changes are necessary. 3 months later, the task force presents recommendations. Layoffs, benefit cuts, office consolidations, all the unpopular shit that needed to happen. Catherine listens thoughtfully to their presentation, asks probing questions, expresses concern about the human impact, then says, "I appreciate the thorough analysis. These are difficult but necessary decisions. Let's proceed with implementation." Here's what happened next. Employees angry about layoffs? They directed frustration at Brian and Melissa. They recommended this. Catherine, she was the leader, making tough but necessary decisions based on expert recommendations. When people pushed back, she could say, "I understand your concerns. This came from extensive analysis by our task force." But here's the genius part. When it came to announcing which departments were spared, which programs were maintained, which benefits stayed intact, Catherine delivered that news personally. Company-wide email from her, town halls where she explained what they'd managed to preserve, direct credit for the good parts. 6 months later, the company hit its cost targets. Employees who kept their jobs felt Catherine fought for them. Brian and Melissa got quietly reassigned to less visible roles. Catherine got promoted to SVP. That's delegation strategy. You delegate the unpopular, you personalize the popular. Machiavelli wrote, "Princes should delegate unpopular duties to others while dispensing favors themselves." Modern translation, let others deliver bad news, you deliver good news. Let others enforce policies, you grant exceptions. Let others be the bad cop, you be the thoughtful leader making difficult choices. This plays out everywhere. The CEO who has the CFO announce layoffs but personally announces bonuses. The politician who lets agencies enforce unpopular policies while personally appearing at ribbon-cutting ceremonies. The manager who has HR deliver performance improvement plans but personally delivers promotions. The parent who makes one partner enforce discipline while they provide comfort. Some people call this manipulative. Machiavelli would call it understanding human psychology. People associate messengers with messages. They attribute outcomes to whoever's face is attached to them. Control the attribution, control the perception. But there's a darker level to this. Sometimes you create problems through intermediaries so you can solve them personally and look like the hero. The manager who lets their department struggle under inadequate resources, then fights hard to get them what they need, resources they could have provided all along. The leader who allows confusion to develop, then provides clarity that makes them look decisive. Is this evil? Maybe. Is it effective? Absolutely. Is it happening around you right now? Without question. The strategic enemy, how creating opposition serves you. This one makes people uncomfortable, but it's pure Machiavellian genius. Sometimes you need to create or maintain enemies to consolidate your power. Let me tell you about a city mayor I consulted with. Moderate guy, first term, facing re-election. Polling showed him as acceptable but unmemorable. The kiss of death in politics. People don't mobilize for acceptable. His opponent was a political nobody, minimal name recognition, no real threat. The mayor's team was planning to largely ignore him and run on accomplishments. Then his campaign manager, a woman who really understood Machiavelli, made a counterintuitive move. We need to make this opponent scary, not to voters initially, but to our base. We need them to see him as a genuine threat that must be defeated. The campaign started amplifying the opponent's most extreme statements, not lying about them, just ensuring they got maximum visibility. Social media ads showing his controversial positions, email alerts to supporters. Look what he just said. Town halls where they'd reference his proposals as examples of where we could go if we're not careful. What happened? The opponent's polling actually went up slightly. He got more attention than he'd ever had. The mayor's team panicked. We're helping him. But the campaign manager knew better. Watch what happened next. The mayor's base, previously apathetic, started seeing the election as crucial. Donor contributions increased, volunteer sign-ups spiked. The narrative shifted from another boring election to protecting our city from extremism. The mayor went from acceptable to necessary bulwark against dangerous change. Election day, landslide victory, record turnout among his supporters. The opponent's increased visibility had energized the opposition against him more than it had energized support for him. That's the strategic enemy principle. Threats unify, safety creates complacency. Sometimes your best move is elevating your opposition just enough to make your supporters remember why they need you. Machiavelli understood this deeply. External threats unify internal factions, common enemies create cohesion. Leaders without threats struggle to maintain power because there's no compelling reason for followers to stay aligned. This is why politicians sometimes seem to benefit from opposition party attacks. It rallies their base. Why companies sometimes seem to thrive when facing existential threats from competitors. It focuses employees. Why social movements often grow stronger when facing clear opposition. It clarifies identity. Watch this play out in everyday life. The manager who subtly maintains a common problem, bureaucratic corporate policies, difficult clients, resource constraints, that keeps their team unified against external forces rather than turning on each other. The relationship where couples bond over shared frustrations with in-laws or work pressures rather than examining their own issues. The friend group that maintains cohesion partly through shared disdain for an outsider or rival group. Dark, yes, common, everywhere you look. The advanced move, creating multiple enemies that serve different purposes. The external enemy that unifies your team. The internal enemy that gives people someone safe to blame for problems. The abstract enemy, inefficiency, bureaucracy, the system that you can perpetually fight without ever fully defeating because you don't actually want it defeated. You want the cause. The measured cruelty when mercy becomes weakness. This might be the most uncomfortable Machiavellian principle, but avoiding it doesn't make it less true. Sometimes limited ruthlessness prevents greater suffering. Story time. Remember Anderson, the executive from earlier? Years later, he became CEO of a different company, mid-sized manufacturing firm with the problem division, consistently underperforming, bleeding money, poor leadership, low morale. Anderson's approach, let's call it corporate compassion. He tried coaching the division president, tried bringing in consultants, tried reorganization, tried new strategies, gave it 2 years. Why? He didn't want to be the bad guy, didn't want to destroy someone's career, wanted to give them every chance. What actually happened? The division kept failing. The bleeding continued. Other divisions watched and learned they could underperform without consequences. Good performers started wondering why they were working so hard when mediocrity was tolerated. The company's stock declined. Competitors gained market share. Eventually, the board forced Anderson's hand. Entire divisions shut down. 300 people laid off instead of the 12 who were the actual problem. Anderson's mercy cost 288 additional jobs. Compare that to his successor, a woman named Patricia, who took over a similar situation elsewhere. She identified the core problem: 5 managers causing a toxic culture that was destroying a department of 80 people. Within 3 months, all 5 were gone. Ruthless? Yes. Did the remaining 75 people suddenly start performing better without the toxic leadership? Also, yes. Did the company avoid the slow death spiral? Absolutely. Machiavelli's principle: men should either be caressed or eliminated because they will avenge minor injuries but cannot avenge severe ones. Translation: half measures in dealing with opposition create the worst outcomes. Either fully convert enemies into friends or completely remove their ability to oppose you. The middle ground, minor punishments, partial consequences, gentle warnings, creates resentment without resolution. This plays out in ways most people don't recognize. The parent who gives inconsistent consequences teaches their kid that rules are negotiable. The one who enforces clear boundaries once creates more respect than one who gives repeated warnings that aren't backed up. The manager who keeps threatening performance improvement plans without following through loses all credibility. The one who acts decisively once sends a message that shapes behavior across the entire team. The friend who keeps sort of forgiving betrayals while maintaining resentment creates an ongoing toxic dynamic. The one who either fully forgives and moves forward or ends the friendship cleanly creates resolution. The romantic partner who keeps threatening to leave but never does hands all power to the other person. But here's the crucial distinction, and this is where most people misunderstand Machiavelli. He wasn't advocating random cruelty. He was advocating strategic, measured, purposeful action that serves larger goals. Cruelty for its own sake creates hatred and opposition. Necessary severity in service of organizational health or justice, different equation entirely. The manager who fires someone publicly to send a message creates fear and resentment. The one who handles it privately but firmly creates respect. The leader who eliminates threats to consolidate power for personal gain is a tyrant. The one who does it to protect the organization's mission is a leader making hard calls. The distinction: purpose and proportionality. Is the severity necessary for the larger good? Is it proportionate to the problem? Is it executed with basic respect for human dignity? If yes, it's leadership. If no, it's cruelty. The transparency trap: why honest people lose. Let me introduce you to the transparency trap. The paradox where radical honesty becomes a competitive disadvantage. David ran for local office on absolute transparency, answered every question honestly, admitted every uncertainty, acknowledged every complexity, shared every doubt. Beautiful, principled, political suicide. His opponent? Simple messages with absolute certainty. I will cut taxes and improve services. Mathematically impossible. This will definitely work. No evidence. I guarantee results. Can't actually guarantee anything. David's honesty. There are several approaches, each with trade-offs, and optimal solutions depend on factors we won't fully understand until implementation begins. That's the one. Not the honest guy, never the honest guy. This is the transparency trap. The negotiator who reveals their true bottom line loses leverage instantly. The politician who admits uncertainty appears weak. The competitor who discloses capabilities enables countermeasures. The brutal truth: markets punish honesty, systems reward strategic deception. The honest get filtered out, the strategically deceptive survive and thrive. It's not a moral failing, it's structural selection, like evolution but for power dynamics. Game theorists call this the honesty penalty. Environments where complete transparency becomes systematically disadvantageous. Without perfect enforcement, systems naturally evolve towards states where strategic deception provides competitive advantages. The company disclosing problems, stock crashes, while competitors concealing identical issues maintain valuations. The politician admitting complexity loses to the one offering simple lies. The negotiator revealing positions gets exploited by the one practicing ambiguity. You can rage against this if you want. You can insist it shouldn't be this way. You can commit yourself to radical honesty as a moral stance. Just don't be surprised when the Machiavellians eat your lunch while you're congratulating yourself on your integrity. The modern game: why this matters more now than ever. Let me bring this into the present because we're living through what political theorists call the new Machiavellian moment. Digital technologies have exponentially amplified both the scale and sophistication of perception management. Deepfakes, bot networks, algorithmic manipulation, astroturfing. We literally can't trust that videos are real, grassroots movements are genuine, or trending topics are organic. Algorithm-driven platforms don't ask, is this true? They ask, will this trigger engagement? Twitter doesn't elevate accuracy, it amplifies outrage. Instagram doesn't reward authenticity, it monetizes aspiration. TikTok doesn't care about depth, it optimizes for immediate impact. The global competition has intensified pressure to maintain appearances regardless of reality. Companies must project growth while contracting, nations must signal strength while vulnerable, leaders must appear certain while confused, and democratic systems? They increasingly reward mastery of information management over substantive problem solving. The candidate with the best memes wins. The leader who controls the narrative succeeds. Think about Trump's 2016 campaign. Love him or hate him, that was pure Machiavellianism. He understood that perception dominates reality so completely you can contradict yourself sentence to sentence, and it doesn't matter as long as you control the emotional frame and maintain absolute certainty. Mexico will pay for the wall. Did Mexico pay? No. Did it matter? Not to his base. Because the perception of strength and emotional satisfaction of the promise mattered more than implementation reality. That's Machiavelli playing out in real-time, global scale. And it's not just politics. Every industry, every sector, every domain of human competition, corporate leaders balancing investor expectations against organizational realities, tech founders projecting hockey stick growth for products that don't work yet, influencers curating lifestyles they're struggling to maintain, dating profiles creating elaborate fictions. We're all playing Machiavelli's game now, whether we admit it or not. Beyond good and evil, the real question. Here's where most people get stuck. They treat this as a moral question. Is deception right or wrong? Wrong question. That's like asking if gravity is right or wrong. Gravity operates according to physical laws, regardless of your opinion. Strategic deception operates according to competitive laws. In environments with limited resources and imperfect information, deception provides advantage. This isn't good or bad, it just is. The right question. Given that strategic deception provides competitive advantages, how do you navigate this reality without losing your soul? Because the real danger isn't becoming too Machiavellian, it's remaining naively idealistic while everyone around you masters strategic information management. That doesn't make you moral, it makes you incompetent. And incompetence gets eliminated. Machiavelli's actual insight, the one everyone misses, wasn't that deception is good. It was that without structural countermeasures, deception becomes strategically necessary. And virtue disconnected from effectiveness becomes self-defeating. The moral leader who fails to achieve power accomplishes nothing beyond symbolic martyrdom. The strategic leader who maintains power without purpose becomes empty manipulation. The integration, what Machiavelli called virtue, the capacity to act effectively in service of worthy ends, not virtue in the Sunday school sense. Excellence that comes from mastering necessary skills even when they make you uncomfortable. Strategic mastery plus ethical purpose equals transformative power. Neither alone is sufficient. Both together change everything. Your choice, stay naive or get dangerous. So here we are, you've seen behind the curtain, you understand the mechanics now, the four faces, the fear-love dynamic, the perception-reality gap, the games being played all around you. Question is, what do you do with this knowledge? Option 1, reject it. Insist the world shouldn't work this way. Commit yourself to radical honesty as a moral stance. Stay pure, stay principled, and watch as more sophisticated players exploit your naivety while you console yourself with moral superiority. Option 2, embrace it completely. Become pure calculation. Master the manipulation. Win at any cost. Accumulate power for its own sake, and eventually realize you've become exactly the kind of person you probably despised starting out. Option 3, integrate it. Understand the mechanics without being controlled by them. Develop strategic mastery while anchoring yourself in purposes larger than self-advancement. Learn the rules so you can play effectively in service of things that actually matter. That third option, that's the narrow path, the one that requires both cunning and conscience, the one that demands you see clearly without becoming cynical, the one that asks you to master dark arts in service of light purposes. It's not easy, but it's the only option that doesn't require sacrificing either your effectiveness or your humanity. 5 centuries after his death, Machiavelli's most challenging insight remains. Power requires mastering strategic deception, not because deception is good, but because competitive environments make it necessary. You can pretend otherwise, you can insist virtue and effectiveness naturally align, you can believe honesty automatically prevails. Just don't be surprised when reality disagrees. The game is being played right now, around you, on you, whether you see it or not. The only question left, will you understand the rules well enough to play in service of something that actually matters, your move?